Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Welcome back to A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host. Back this week, another very eventful week. It's the week where we're talking about more indictments for Donald Trump. And it's looking like it might go as high as espionage, the Espionage Act. He might be indicted for espionage. A former president of the United States. Now, people keep saying he would be the first former United States president to have a federal indictment. The only reason for that is because President Gerald Ford pardoned former President Richard Nixon. Otherwise, Nixon would have been federally indicted as well, and he would have went to prison. A few episodes back, I talked more in depth about that and the fact that Ford, he said we need to just heal as a country. The dark times in our country are past. I'm going to pardon President Nixon so that we don't have to keep going through this peril we've been going through with Watergate. Well, when he did that, by the way, it lost him his reelection because most Americans were really pissed that he did that. And it opened the door for future Republicans to say, hey, I can do anything I want. Reagan had more people indicted and convicted than Nixon did. Reagan did the whole cheating to get in 1980 by making a deal with the Iranians to make sure that they kept the hostages longer to get him in the White House. And then when he was in the White House, they would get a better deal. Same thing Nixon did basically in Vietnam to win the election in 1968. Reagan did that in 1980, and then he continued that deal with Iran, and the whole Iran-Contra scandal went on for years, and many people went down for it. Nixon's attorney general went to prison, but Nixon did not go to prison. Nixon was not indicted. That's the only reason that we're saying that Donald Trump would be the first former United States president to be indicted on federal charges. Republicans have been cheating and doing criminalities for decades. This week, let's see, what were the Republicans trying to focus on this week? Well, their leader is being indicted for espionage. By the way, on Sunday, I said, hey, it's looking more and more like Trump's going to be indicted on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case this week, maybe Tuesday. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday where he was served a letter that said, hey, you're a target in this. And that is usually a sign that the indictment's going to be coming within a couple of days. So it's going to happen at any moment. Could happen tomorrow. It didn't happen Tuesday, like I was kind of saying, hey, maybe it'll happen Tuesday. And the only reason that I don't want to take credit for my predictions because they're very well informed by people who know a lot more than I do on these matters. As you know, I give them credit all the time. But a lot of people have been predicting that indictments would come this week, and they still might. And the Republicans are focusing then. They're always like, hey, don't look at that. Look at what's going on over here. Over here, the Biden administration is trying to ban gas stoves, even though it's not true. Biden is not, I believe he's even said, no, I'm not trying to ban gas stoves. I'm not trying to ban gas stoves. There is actually good reason to put regulation on gas stoves because in a new study, they found out that there's some very nasty poisons that are causing kids to develop asthma and things like that. Certainly in cities, in small apartments where there's not much airflow, gas stoves they have been finding that there's some very, very nasty carcinogens that build up in like an apartment. So there is good reason to put some regulations on it. But the Republicans, that's what they're talking about this week. That's the main thing they're talking about. What ended up happening on that subject, Kevin McCarthy, who thinks he's a genius, but he's about the only one. There's a thing called the Hastert rule. If you remember Denny Hastert, who was the Speaker of the House in the late 90s and early aughts of the Republican House. Speaker of the House, he was ousted in shame and ended up going to prison for child sexual abuse, pedophilia. The Republicans aren't just obsessed with pedophilia. They seem to be enamored with it. Because so many of them, I mean, I should have made a chart or made a list, because you can make a list, a long list of Republican politicians who end up being busted because they have child pornography in their computers. They're trying to spread child pornography. They have sexually molested children, and they keep accusing Democrats of, being pedophiles. I don't know. They're enamored with pedophilia. Anyway, Denny Hastert, his former Speaker of the House, Republican, went to jail for child sexual molestation. He set a rule that you don't put a bill on the floor until you already know that it's going to pass. You already need to know what votes you have before you even introduce a bill onto the floor. For the first time in 30 years, a Republican Speaker of the House broke the Hastert rule and put a bill on the House. On Monday, Kevin McCarthy, who thinks he's a genius, and always goes like this, before he says, at the beginning of every sentence, when he's speaking into a microphone, he goes like this. I am going to make sure that the people of the United States of America will always have access to their gas-burning stoves. Electric stoves are not as fun. And I'm going to make sure, and the Republican Party is going to make sure, under my leadership as Speaker of the House, that the Biden administration will never be able to ban gas stoves in America. So he put a bill on the floor, and the people that he made a deal with in order to become Speaker of the House, the craziest of the crazies, the MAGAs, they blocked it. They made sure it didn't pass. So he went against the Hastert rule, and he made a fool of himself. He put a bill out to make sure that gas stoves cannot be banned, and then it didn't pass. If it did pass, it would not have even been introduced on the Senate floor, and if it did go to the Senate floor, it would have lost the vote, and if it won the vote on the Senate floor, Joe Biden would have vetoed it, because it's just stupid. It's a mockery. It's a mockery of the House of Representatives. What are they doing? That's what they're doing this week. And by the way, those crazy MAGAs who made sure that bill was blocked, last week and 2 weeks ago, they were saying if the debt ceiling bill gets passed, then we're going to have to rethink our leadership. That's what one of them said, which means we're going to oust Kevin McCarthy. We're going to introduce a vote to get rid of the Speaker of the House. They had the rules set up in their deal with McCarthy in order to get him to be the Speaker of the House after 15 ballots. They were threatening to oust him if the debt ceiling deal passed. Well, the debt ceiling deal did passed unfavorable to them. And have they ousted Speaker McCarthy? No, they haven't. They're bluffing. They're lying. They're liars. They're cowards. They're just playing different acting parts to try and get themselves booked on Fox and Newsmax, and that's all they're doing. That's all the Republicans are doing. They're just trying to constantly distract. M&Ms. What about that one M&M who used to be kind of sexy and now seems a little lesbian-like? What the hell's gone up with that? They're trying to indoctrinate our kids with M&Ms. Matt Walsh. They're mad that Disney remade Little Mermaid, a live-action Little Mermaid, and they cast a black woman to be the Little Mermaid. Matt Walsh, some crazy, I don't really even know who he is. I only see clips of him when it's stuff like this. He's just seems like a bigoted, anyway. Matt Walsh tried to make the point that scientifically, it doesn't make sense for the mermaid to be cast as a black woman, scientifically, because science has a lot of things to say about mermaids. Mermaids are a part of science. It doesn't make scientific sense for a mermaid to be black. That's what one of them said. It doesn't make scientific sense for the mermaid to be black. There are no scientific rules for mermaids. Oh my God. The whole woke thing. Other distractions. Hunter's laptop, of course. Matt Schlapp is very interested in at least one part of Hunter's laptop, and I think we know what part that is. The lap schlapper, Matt Schlapp. The Twitter files. Remember the Twitter files? All these distractions that they keep bringing up and they go away. You forget about them after a couple weeks. The Twitter files was the big thing they were talking about, kind of tied in with Hunter's laptop. They're not talking about the Twitter files because the Twitter files were completely debunked and it was just a bunch of crap. Caravans. Oh, caravans are coming. Gas stoves. Remember when they talked about inflation? And now inflation's going down. And our jobs numbers are just like doubling the predictions monthly. So they can't talk about the economy. They can't talk about inflation. They can't talk about caravans. They can't talk about the Twitter files. Burisma in Ukraine. Oh, they can't really talk about that. Let's see, what else? Bud Light. They're still trying to talk about that because of, I don't consider Bud Light even being a beer. So I'm unfamiliar with anything Bud Light does. But apparently they had a trans woman do a short commercial for Bud Light. So now the Republicans are losing their minds about Bud Light. Oh, and Target. Target has rainbows on some of their displays. So, yeah, go woke, go. By the way, go woke, go broke. Little Mermaid going woke by having a scientifically nonsensical black mermaid. How did the movie do when it opened on Memorial Day? It broke all records. Something like $114 million opening. So it didn't go broke. They tried to boycott it, but there's not enough of them to make anything go broke when they boycott things. Here's another big distraction the Republicans can no longer talk about. Remember about a month ago when they were talking about the Biden administration is going to lift Title 42, which was a thing where it made crossing the border way more stringent because of COVID. And it was put up by the Trump administration. And now that COVID's done, Biden said we're going to lift Title 42. But we're going to make a new rule that basically if you come into the United States and don't follow the rules, if you don't come to the place you're supposed to come, and if you don't fill out the forms you're supposed to fill out, if you come in and do it wrong, you're going to be kicked out of the country and you're not going to be able to even try and come back in as an immigrant for 5 years. And the news got out. The Republicans were saying that when Title 42 is lifted, the border's just going to break loose like a broken dam. And we're just going to have tons of illegals and gangsters and everything coming across the border. At that time, we had about 11,000 a day trying to come in at the border. Now we have 3,400, a 70% decrease because of that 5-year punishment plan by the Biden administration. So do you hear the Republicans talking about the border now? Do you hear the Republicans talking about the lifting of Title 42? No. Because it didn't happen. Just like M&Ms aren't making all kids gay. It's not happening. Yeah. All of these distractions they try and put up because they're such an incredible mess. They are such a mess. They're trying to bust Biden. They're trying to get the FBI to show them a thing that's going to for sure bring down the Biden administration. And they had a whistleblower, but they lost the whistleblower. They got nothing on that. They're trying to make something of it, and they just can't. It's really pathetic. It's kind of sad to watch them be so embarrassed. It's embarrassing to watch them be so embarrassed. It's embarrassing to watch them embarrass themselves so much. It's just absolutely pathetic. And how do they move forward? We're going to talk about how they're thinking they're going to move forward. We're going to talk about some of the goings-on in the presidential candidates that they're trying to put up. And also some good news about voting rights in Alabama. But we're going to take a break and come back, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff. We'll be right back with A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson. And we're back on A Satellite View. Sometimes I like to just go down my Twitter feed. I go through and I just basically retweet things so I can have a list. And it's fun to just peruse it. Let's see. Oh, Kelly Morrison. My state senator, Kelly Morrison. More reasons to stop pouring forever chemicals into our water and land. Proud of our legislation to ban non-essential use of PFAS this session. Another thing that the Minnesota, you might have heard, even nationally, you might have heard that Minnesota, we have Democrats running the Senate, the House, and the governor's office, and got a lot of stuff done. And my friend and State Senator Kelly Morrison has been a big part of passing some of these things. She writes, prevention is always cheaper and healthier than cleanup. She speaks wise words. This is true with your house, small businesses, large businesses, all infrastructure. Kelly and the Minnesota Democrats know that. Minnesota GOP may know that, but they're always against it. They always vote against it. Also, an article in Bring Me the News, Minneapolis police say that there's a significant drop in shooting victims in Minneapolis, in the metropolitan area, actually, Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Republicans are trying to make us all scared to go into the city. And actually, violence and shootings and murders are going down, down, down in a lot of cities right now. Another thing that then the Republicans are kind of quiet on. Do you hear them talking about that right now? No. No. Are they talking about the economy? Are they talking about inflation? No. Our jobs numbers under the Biden administration are stellar. The economy is stellar. As a matter of fact, Janet Yellen said that inflation would go down even more if we had a higher unemployment number. So part of the reason inflation is here is because people are fine with spending the money because everybody's got a job. Everybody's got money. The economy is booming. People are spending money. So the people who are charging the money to buy stuff are like, hey, people are willing to pay this price. I'm going to keep it higher. So part of the reason inflation's going on is because our economy is doing like too good. It's going too well. Here's another thing on my Twitter feed. Major breaking news, a federal whistleblower called credible by Intelligence Community Inspector General says the U.S. military has quite a number of spacecraft in custody of non-human origin. Stick that in there. Of course, Mark Meadows testified. We may have heard about that. I don't want to go too far into that because we got so many subjects Speaker McCarthy pleaded with members this morning. This is on June 6th, which would have been Tuesday, I think. Speaker McCarthy pleaded with members this morning to move past the debt ceiling and focus on their next play. A block of Republican hardliners had a different idea, the latest on the GOP revolt. Holding up the floor, talked about that in the last segment. I'm kind of scrolling through here. Title 42, we already talked about that. Yeah, so the murder rate's going down. Oh, George Santos, it's been ruled that his $500,000 bail bond was put up by somebody. Who? Well, he wanted to keep it sealed. A judge said no. It's got to be made public. That'll happen in the next couple days. Ron DeSantis may be charged with kidnapping. A ruling on that will be made very soon as well, because a investigation in Texas just concluded, and a sheriff in El Paso, I think, said, yeah, I'm done with my investigation, and I am going to charge some people with some things. Ron DeSantis could be charged with kidnapping, and there's an investigation going on in California for the same thing right now. So are we going to have the two Republican frontrunners running their campaigns from a jail cell? Anyway, so some good news. In Alabama, they drew lines that made it so that a huge minority county had a lot of voter suppression. The United States Supreme Court actually, surprisingly, Brett Kavanaugh and John Roberts went along with the liberals and said that is unconstitutional. Sticking with the 1965 Voters' Rights Bill, they said this has to be redone. These lines have to be redrawn. These rules have to be remade, which could open up 3 districts in Alabama. That's the state that they made the ruling on. 3 districts could go Democratic instead of Republican because of this ruling in Alabama alone. Now, this same thing has happened in Georgia and Texas, I think. 1 or 2 other states that could very well, before the 2024 election, be ruled in this same way. Already 3 districts are opened in the United States House of Representatives that could put those 3 districts in favor of a Democrat winning instead of a Republican. And in these other states, if this same ruling goes through, it could be up to 8 seats in the House of Representatives. Now, we already know in New York there's probably 3 seats on Long Island that we don't know what happened. That's how George Santos got in. Well, that's now been revealed. So there's probably 3 seats just on Long Island. That makes 11 seats? I'm telling you, the Democrats are going to get the House back. In 2025, we're going to have the House and the Senate and the White House again. And the Republicans are going to be all but extinct. And part of the reason is you can see right now already their presidential candidates. I don't know if you've ever seen Veep. If you haven't seen Veep, see Veep, the HBO television show called Veep. You've probably heard of it. It was really a big show, won tons of awards, and it is absolutely hilarious. I have it on DVD and have watched it over and over again because it's really, really funny. And it mocks Washington in such a hilarious way. There's, I think it was the 2nd season, the vice president, and she's helping other candidates out during election time. So she's kind of on tour across the United States, and they just do a bunch of shots of her speaking into a microphone. And she does just a great mockery of a politician just talking into a microphone at an event. She basically does it like this. And he said to me, "You might not remember me, but I am your grandpa." And I thought it was hilarious. I don't know if you do. I thought it was hilarious. You kind of have to see it, right? But listen to this.
It is great to be back at the Roast and Ride. I rode and I roasted on the ride.
That is Mike Pence sounding exactly like a scene from Veep, which does nothing but mocks politicians. And wow, Pence is the most mockable, even more so, because Pence does it in such an old school way. You know, he's like, I don't know, he's trying to imitate Ronald Reagan, but he just can't do it. He can't pull it off. Really embarrassing moments. I guess CNN is having these town halls with all of the candidates. I guess only the Republican candidates. They haven't had one with Joe Biden yet. But Dana Bash hosted a town hall with Pence, and it was so cringeworthy. You know, she was saying things like, so Donald Trump had people come to the Capitol and want to hang you. Are you going to endorse him? And if he becomes the nominee, and he's just like, he's not going to be the nominee. Well, what if he is? And then he just can't answer the question. He says that we need to have the death penalty for mass shooters. That's how he's talking about mass shootings. He's not, you know, no way can we talk about guns. If you do a mass shooting, you automatically get the death penalty. And he thinks that will stop mass shootings. So Dana Bash goes, well, it seems like most of these, or all of these mass shooters expect to die. It's almost like they want to die. They usually kill themselves. And if they don't kill themselves, they seem pretty sure that they're going to be killed by law enforcement. So why would a death penalty stop mass shootings? And then he just has a confused look on his face like, oh, yeah. That's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought of that. Wow. Let's see. What am I going to say now? Many moments like that, actually, where he was just flummoxed because he's never expected to actually be pressed on anything. And he's just so bad at this. He thinks America will love him, but he's got no clue. He says things that Donald Trump did. He kind of won't use Donald Trump's name, but he says, you know, people who do that kind of thing. My family was threatened on January 6th, and anybody who starts or foments an event like that should never be president of the United States. He should certainly never be president of the United States again. Okay, so it's obviously Trump. Then he's asked, okay, if Trump becomes the nominee, will you support him? Will you endorse him? And he won't answer. He won't answer. He's saying the guy should never be president again, but if he's the Republican nominee, you're going to endorse him still? And of course, Ron DeSantis is just still just like, he's just constantly embarrassing himself over and over again. Now, a really interesting thing that happened is Pence, you know, he made his announcement this week, very embarrassingly, and so did Chris Christie. Chris Christie is really good at just talking and making sense and seeming completely real and authentic. You know, he makes me a little nervous if he actually became the Republican nominee and ran for president. He would make me a little nervous, except for if he got that far, which he won't. He can't. And we'll talk about that after I say this one thing. The thing that reminds me again that even if Chris Christie became the presidential nominee and really sounded like he was making sense, if you're a Republican, you still have to deal with women's health care rights, abortion. Will you support a national ban on abortion? If he says no, he loses the Republican vote. He loses the Republican base. If he says yes, he loses America. So there's no way he can win, even if he gets as far as being the Republican nominee. He's not going to be the nominee. He's already polled. He can't even get up to 1% in a Republican primary poll. But what he's doing, I think, is great. He's hitting it hard. Listen to this.
And by the way, making the Secret Service stay at your hotel and pay your hotel rates on the taxpayer's dime, too. Because let me tell you something, everybody. The grift from this family is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner walk out of the White House and months later get $2 billion from the Saudis. $2 billion from the Saudis. You think it's because he's some kind of investing genius? Or do you think it's because he was sitting next to the President of the United States for 4 years doing favors for the Saudis? That's your money. That's your money he stole and gave it to his family. You know what that makes us? A banana republic. That's what it makes us.
That's something that he's a Republican talking to Republican primary voters, and that is a good thing. He says a lot of really good things like this in this town hall. It's not on CNN. It's his own town hall, an actual town hall in New Hampshire. And he made a lot of sense. And he was hitting Trump really hard. Now, what he's going to be doing is knocking Trump out. He's going to be doing this. I don't know that he's even going to make it to a debate stage. And if he does make it to a debate stage, Trump is saying that he won't show up. And now if Chris Christie's in the debates, Trump will for sure not show up. But man, would it be majestic to see Chris Christie and Donald Trump on the same debate stage. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be really good for America to see. But even if they never come face to face again, he knows how to go after Trump. This is what needs to be said by a Republican. It's already being said by all Democrats. But for a Republican to say this to Republican voters, that's what needs to happen. Trump needs to be revealed for the absolute piece of crap, cleaning up my language, that he is. And Chris Christie is determined to do that. I think Chris Christie knows he doesn't have a chance of becoming the Republican nominee, much less win in a general election. He's smart. He knows just the abortion thing alone, you can't be a Republican anymore because you can't win an election, a fair election at least, and be a Republican with this issue going the way it's going. Gen Z showing up more and more to vote, you can't be a Republican and win a fair election. Chris Christie knows that. I think Chris Christie is doing America a favor. I'm not saying I like the guy, but he is really good at this. The whole Bridgegate thing, he's basically another amateur mobster. He should not be anywhere in an elected office. He's still a selfish piece of crap, but he's really good at talking like this. He's really good at sounding authentic. Whether he's authentic or not, he's really good at sounding like he is. He's going to decimate Trump. I think he's on a crusade to, I'm going to do my part to try and save democracy in America by decimating Trump. It seems like I'm the only one who can do it. Nobody else has the guts to do it. Pence, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, all these people, they're not going to go after Trump. Chris Christie's really good at this, and I think he's decided, I'm going to take down Trump. I know I'm not going to be anything. I know I'm not going to be the nominee, or the Republicans can't win the general election anyway, so I don't really even know if I want to be the nominee, but I'm going to take down Trump. I'm going to make sure Trump doesn't win. That's what I think he's doing, and I think it's really a good thing. I don't want to thank him yet. We'll see what happens, but because I don't completely trust him. He did follow Trump all the way up to the 2020 election. He was working on the Trump campaign in 2020. He was supporting Trump. So, I don't trust him, but if this is what he's doing, it is a good thing for our country. And, if it turns out that way and he doesn't pull a fast one somewhere, which, if he actually does what I think he's doing, then I think it's to be commended. It's kind of his duty to his country a little bit. Anyway, so very interesting. I'm already seeing too some things trending on Twitter so I'm speaking at you from June 8th, Thursday night, 2023. Things could be happening right now. Things could have happened since I came on to the microphone that, I don't know, Trump might have been indicted already. I don't know. But things are moving fast, and we're going to try and keep you abreast. I'm going to be on AM 950 again coming up, even starting next week on Tuesday, and a few days throughout the summer. I can't keep the schedule straight, but I'm going to be sitting in on the Matt McNeil Show. And you've been listening to A Satellite View. Thank you so much for coming back. We're going to do this weekly, and hope to see you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.